What is going on, guys? Joe Robert here, back again with episode 3 of the POD Pod by PODninjas.com, a print-on-demand podcast where we talk about Shopify, Facebook ads, Instagram, Facebook pages, everything to do with your e-commerce brand and your print-on-demand products is really what this podcast is all about. And like I said, this is episode 3, so if you guys want to check out episode 1 and episode 2, you guys can follow us on Facebook, or you can go on over to podninjas.com/podcast, where all of these episodes are going to be kept. So super excited to have you guys here for episode 3. I'm having a lot of fun doing this for you guys. We're probably going to be doing these episodes probably 3 days a week to start, probably like a Monday, a Wednesday, and Friday type of thing. Currently, the podcast is available on SoundCloud and also on YouTube. I'm going to be looking into potentially getting it on Apple Podcasts as well, so you guys can listen easily on the go. But episode 1 and 2, basically I kind of introduced to you guys what I was going to be using this podcast as. And if you guys haven't listened to those episodes, first off, go listen to them. But second off, just to repeat a little bit, kind of like what I want this podcast to become is just another way for me to produce some print-on-demand content, right? So that's exactly what we're going to do today. One of the things that I wanted to touch on today is kind of like this mistake that I see a lot of people make when they first start print on demand. And I deal with a lot of people, right? Because I have my print on demand Facebook group, I have my YouTube channel, I have a print on demand mentorship program. I do a lot of coaching calls and stuff like that. So I deal with a lot of people that I have really, varying backgrounds when it comes to print on demand. And some people, they're making sales and they're really just looking for someone to kind of consult with them and give them a little bit of advice on how they should scale their existing store. And then there's a lot of people too that are, at the beginning, right? Like they saw a little bit of stuff on YouTube, or they saw people on Facebook in different groups talking about their success with print on demand. So they thought, hey, like let me give this thing a shot and see if I can make it work. And what ends up happening, right, is these people that I deal with, let me walk you guys through a scenario that I see all the time, right? Like I see it over and over again, where these people, like they're trying to start their print on demand business, and they come to me and they say, hey, like this is my store. Please check it out. I've been doing print on demand and Shopify now for about 6 months. I haven't really started anything with Facebook ads. I've just been working on my store and my designs and my working on, my product pages or whatever, right? Like they basically spent, 6 months or so, and they have this print on demand store, but they haven't really marketed it, right? So they want me to look at it. So most of the time, right, when I look at these stores, like you guys can probably picture it. Maybe your store looks like this, or maybe it did in the past, but it typically looks like a generic Shopify store, right? Like it has, one of the most popular free themes on it, or maybe it has one of the most popular paid themes on it. It's got a little quirky logo at the top. It's got the little menu button, and I'm talking mobile, right? Like a mobile layout, not a desktop layout. And then it has underneath the logo, it has like that big header image, and it's probably got, some white or black text over that header image. And you probably can't read that header text, right? I don't know if you guys have ever pictured that or seen that. And then under that, like they have, an image with like a little blurb about their store and like a nice story about how the store started. And then under that, they have some products, right? Like they have like the 4 or 5, 6 products that they think are the best ones, and they got those there, right? And then they got their header at the bottom, with whatever they put there. And then that's their store, right? So just trying to paint the picture a little bit. And it doesn't look bad, right? It just looks generic. It looks like any other Shopify store that I've ever seen, from someone that's, 6 months into doing Shopify. So I paint that picture because what I always see with this type of person is they've invested all of this time in this store. And most of the time it's a niche store. So it's all, products that are in one niche. And 9 times out of 10, the niche that they're selling in is not anything that's really ever going to have any success through Facebook advertising, right? Like, let's picture for a moment that your niche, I call these non-niche niches. This is something that I talk about all the time, where it's not really a niche, right? They're just ideas. Like, they're not actual things that people are super passionate about. Like, they're just ideas, right? Like motivation, or relaxation, or spirituality, or something like that, right? Like something that's not really a real niche. It's just more of a general idea. And the problem is that when they come to me for help, I basically tell them, like, hey, you got to go back and you got to start over. Like, you got to create what I call a testing store, also known as a general store, where you learn the ropes of Shopify, you test some niches out, and you learn Facebook ads. And that's what I typically recommend, right? When people are starting, they sometimes go out and they try to build this brand, and they sink 6 months into it, and they never try Facebook ads because they're so focused on building this brand, right? And they end up putting a whole bunch of time and money and effort into their store. And then they end up having something that's not really ever going to work because it's not a good niche for Facebook ads. And they're left with, hey, I just wasted all this time. And then what ends up happening is most people that do that, they end up just giving up because they say to themselves, like, hey, I just wasted all this time, all this money, all this effort, and I haven't made any money. And you know what? I'm done. I don't want to do this again. And then it sucks because, they actually did try really hard. They just didn't have the right guidance. And that's what I see time and time again, is that when you guys are starting print on demand or a Shopify dropshipping store, primarily, I always talk about print on demand because that's what I do. But primarily, you guys need to start with a general store. You need to start with what I call a testing store. And on that testing store, you need to test out tons and tons of niches, because if you don't, most of the time, you're not going to find a winning niche on your first try. And that's what happens is people have this idea for a Shopify store and they spend all this time building this brand and it's never going to work. And if you guys have a testing store, you guys will have a much better chance of eventually developing something that's going to have a real shot at being successful. So I have some more opinions on what exactly a general store should look like, what kind of things you should focus on. But for the most part, a general store, right, is just a store. It has a generic name, not too long, not too quirky, something simple. And it's a general store that has a whole bunch of different products on it and a whole bunch of different niches. And the way that you would operate that store is you'd really focus on primarily the product page, right? Like, you wouldn't focus too much on the home page or collection pages or anything like that, because all you're doing is you're testing niches and you're testing products, right? So you're using Facebook ads and you're driving traffic to the product pages of the various niches. So ideally, you would have your menus and you'd have things structured so that once someone lands on your product page, they don't really go anywhere else. And this is going to allow you guys to try out a niche and try out specific designs and see if you can even make a profit in that niche. And if you can, then you explore, hey, is this something that I can open an entire store around? Or is it something that's more of just a one-off that I'm going to sell on this general store, and I'll continue to go through and look for some other niches in the future, right? So that's what I recommend most people do. And I typically do see people when they're just starting off, with their Shopify store, that they create this huge store, this huge niche store. They spend way too much time on making it, and they end up, at a point where they want to give up because they basically realize, like, hey, I just wasted all this time because I spent too much time on this general store, on this or on this niche store, on this brand that I've been trying to build. And that's fine. Like, I'm glad that they put all that effort in, but it's just a shame because they end up quitting. And I've seen it time and time again. I work with a lot of different people, and they start and they have a call with me, or they interact with me on Facebook Messenger or something like that, and they end up giving up when I give them the feedback that they should reevaluate their approach. And that's really what I wanted to touch on in this episode, is to just kind of start off. I plan on kind of going through like how to start print on demand in 2019 over a few episodes here and there. And that's kind of the first thing, is I want to address, what people are doing to start off. Definitely the long-term goal to be successful with print on demand is you have to build a brand, right? You cannot just be just another t-shirt seller on the internet. You have to create a brand, but in order to do that, you have to find a good niche to develop that brand in. And the only way to do that, in my opinion, is to have a general store and to test niches. Don't worry about the brand, just focus on the products and the niches and test them until you find one that's profitable. That would be what I recommend at the beginning when you're starting print on demand. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you're saying, geez, like I have exactly what Joe Robert is talking about right now. Like I do have a niche store and I have spent the last 6 months trying to develop it, and I have not dabbled with Facebook ads at all. What I would advise you to do is to dabble with Facebook ads. Test your products. See if they have a shot at making sales, because if they don't, it's going to be very apparent to you, and you're going to be like, geez, I just spent all this time and I had never tried Facebook ads, and now I tried Facebook ads and nobody's coming to my store because nobody gives a shit, right? Like that's what you're going to be able to tell right away. So that would be my advice. If you do already have a store set up that is a niche store, I would say go back, dabble with some Facebook ads, see if it's something that can work. And if it does, run with it, right? Like if people are coming to your store and making purchases, then run with it. But for the most part, what I'm telling you guys is if you have a niche store, I want you guys to evaluate it, maybe test it a little bit. And then I want you guys to open a general store and test a whole bunch of niches until you find the one that is going to make you very, very rich. So hope you guys enjoyed episode 3 of the POD Pod. My name is Joe Robert. You guys can go on over to podninjas.com/podcast and view the rest of these podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook. There are multiple pages. They're all on podninjas.com/podcast. So if you guys want to go there, that will give you all the information that you guys need to be able to follow us and see exactly what we're doing. So super excited to keep on doing this for you guys. I'm glad that you guys stopped by today. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode.